All right, everybody. Todd Crandall from Racing for Recovery bringing you another awesome podcast. And this one, like all of them, I'm stoked to have Todd from Junker Designs on. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Let's start with this. You have an awesome name. Why only one D?
Okay. So my dad was like a Irish Catholic alcoholic, and he was apparently on a plane ride with this other sales guy, and they were like totally hammered. And he really liked that guy, I think, because he was like aggressively, maybe kind of arrogant, or I don't know what it was exactly. But my dad asked him, he's like, what's your name? And the dude was like, my name's Todd, TOD, just like GOD. And that's where he got the spelling from.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then our last name used to have two T's in it until the Irish came over, and then they took a T out of the last name Waters.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, next I want to do a little word association with you, and I'm
Okay.
gonna add, based on your answer, I have to add another word in here.
Okay.
I usually do, well, I've got 6, I think, for you. So, word association, I'm going to give you something. You tell us the first thing that comes to mind. First one is art.
Art, pain.
Good answer, Todd. Music.
Fun.
Motley Crue.
A lot of fun.
Right? Passion.
Love, I guess.
Forgiveness.
Difficult.
And the last one, based on that conversation about your name, the word arrogance.
Avoid.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay. This is going to be, we're going to free flow it, whatever. Anything
Okay.
you could ask me anything. I'm going to ask you a lot of stuff, but I'm going to start with this. I'd like to know where the name Junker Designs came from. Let's start with that.
Okay, so I like things to operate on different levels, right? So Junker or Junker really is this German dive bomber, like the Stuka. The Stuka is one the Junker or Junker company made, a few different, I think they made the Hinkel, they made the Stuka, they made some other stuff. So in German it's Junker, I guess. I say it as Junker, and then also I liked it that it could be a warplane, but also in the States, a junker is like a piece of crap car that you have, like rusty and like kind of destruction derby vehicle. And then also we used to call junkies junkers.
Okay.
So it was like kind of smushing all that kind of ambiguous, weird, nasty vision stuff kind of together in my mind.
Well, just on your answer right there, I've learned a great deal about you. So one, right off the bat, when you started talking about the history of that word, I'm like, well, I went to school. I never heard any of that. So where did you learn that? Because I don't think you learned that history in school, or you might have, but do you have a fascination with old war history, different culture history? Where did that come from?
Well, it's pretty cool. I think this is where like a lot of my, you're formed. I think when you're 6, 7, 8 around there, you really start to absorb stuff, in my opinion. And so I grew up in Houston, Texas. In Houston, Texas, we could watch Monty Python on public television. And right after Monty Python was that series, The World at War. And so we watched that for as long as they ran it, which it seemed like it was like years and years and years and years. And so we grew up like listening to Rush records and watching that stuff on PBS and sitting around drawing.
So we're going to tie the art in now and we're going to get to it. What an awesome artist you are and your creations. We'll get to that. But when did you start picking up art?
We always did. Like, this is in elementary school. We were drawing. So I remember there's this guy in third grade. I wish I could find him. His name's L.L. Dinkins. And he was this crazy fat dude with like a bowl cut. And he and I would sit around in class and look at Famous Monsters of Filmland, this monster magazine. And he showed me how to start drawing like Godzillas and robots and stuff. And I remember just wanting to draw, and I started just drawing. And then my best friend Elliot Burke, that's the house we were at most of the time, staying up late watching all that PBS stuff and drawing the whole time.
Is this when you mentioned Rush? Was that the first band that really you got into, and was this along the same time frame?
It's all along the same time frame, but I think we were into Kiss first. Kiss is the first band I remember that was really like made a crazy impression, where I was like obsessed, kind of like Star Wars. I got obsessed with Star Wars. I was obsessed with Kiss. And then in that same time frame, maybe when I was in fourth grade, we all started playing Dungeons and Dragons and listening to Rush, like a lot of Rush. So all that stuff happened in before junior high school.
Okay. Have you seen Rush on this latest tour by any chance? Or are you going?
Man, now that I see them playing, I wish I would have got tickets, but yeah. I haven't seen them. Me and Yvonne saw the last show in LA on the last tour, the last Neil Peart show. And I've probably seen them about 6 or 8 times, maybe.
First time I saw those guys was November 12th of 1981 in the old Toledo Sports Arena. I was
81.
not into Rush until Moving Pictures came out. That's when I got
So is 81
into
the moving is that the Moving Pictures tour or the Signals tour?
Yes. Moving Pictures. And
Moving Pictures tour?
I respected them. Moving Pictures, yeah. And then I followed them through Signals, and then kind of faded off of it for a while. But the musicianship of those guys is just unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember I know I saw Moving Pictures, Signals. I saw Roll the Bones. I might have seen a couple other ones, and then I saw like R30 and R40, and I saw Snakes and Arrows, and I saw whatever that last record was. I can't remember.
Well,
then maybe some more. I don't remember.
I want to switch gears again and get into a little bit more difficult subject, but a good subject I know you can relate to. When you mentioned your dad on that flight, you mentioned alcoholism in a variety of ways or what have you. When did you realize that alcoholism was in your life? And then can you talk about the effects of that a little bit?
I don't think I realized fully, probably till I was 8 is when my dad got sober. One of my earliest memories, though, is holding a beer can like this. So I think we were in the backyard. I don't know if he gave me a beer. I remember it was him. It's so weird that I have like that memory. It was him and this guy, Mr. Poe from down the street. They were barbecuing and drinking beer, and I had a beer. I think I took a sip of a beer. But you don't really realize what's going on with all the total freaking chaos and madness until, my mom's trying to explain, like, your dad's gonna quit drinking or whatever. And I was just like, I don't, whatever it takes,
And I'm very, Todd, before we get into this, you don't have to answer this. We can switch it. You can go into as much detail or as less as you want. I'm respectively asking you this stuff because, this is the line of work that I'm in. And when you brought
Yeah.
that up, I started thinking, okay, how did this lead to your art? Did art become an escapism? Was it a comforting thing? So, with respect to people in your family that are doing this stuff, was music and art kind of like your safety outlet for a while?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the interesting thing about my fucking crazy dad, besides being, mentally and physically abusive, was, man, that guy was listening to records all the time. He was telling us what was going on. It's like Gene Krupa, like he was like into drums before I started playing drums. I started playing drums like eventually. But I remember he was always like putting these records on, and because he and my mom were older parents, they grew up through the Depression and through World War II, so they liked a lot of big band stuff. So I heard a lot of that when I was growing up. As far as like the chaos in the house and the escapism, I remember lying as much as I could to be able to try to stay home sick so I could work on my models and so I could draw. I remember
Interesting.
make even I remember making fake vomit even. My mom was so uh awesome lady, but she was just ready to buy anything. I mixed up like yogurt and some other stuff in the toilet, and I was like, I'm sick, and she bought it that I had thrown up. And then I remember working all day on this crashed B-17 uh, model. I
Okay.
was just
Yeah. Okay. Now we're getting into this. So, you had, you got a gift. I mean, when you can realize a passion, whether it's sports, music, art, whatever, if you get a gift at that young of an age and you understand the power of that gift, that's a blessing, even when life isn't as good as it maybe could have been or should have been, what have you. But
right.
can you talk about where your mind started to shift of, okay, I'm going to do something with art. I'm going to, pursue this, and obviously it turned into something greater probably than you thought, but can you talk a little bit about that evolution of it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it was just like a necessity. Um and what I mean by that was, I remember drawing all through high school. I've had the same like challenges, like uh I guess it's ADD or procrastination or whatever you want to call it. I've had that my whole life. But still, even though like I was considered the slow artist, because there's some dudes that I drew with in junior high, and this guy named Kyle Swan, I'll never forget this dude. Would draw super fast. I remember some kids saying like, "Oh yeah, he's good and fast. You're good and slow." And I was like, "Crap." And I remember like it's always been like a challenge for me. But somehow, like when I moved out of my parents' house and I moved into this punk rock apartment with all these dudes, I started painting James Dean and Marilyn Monroe on the back of these denim jackets and making some money and stuff. And so I realized like my parents, although nuts, they were always really supportive of like my art and my music. I mean, if you think like when I was growing up, I was playing drums in my room like probably 3 hours a day. And I can remember maybe two or three times my dad was just like, you've got to shut up. But for the most time, you know, they let me go, and they were super supportive. They wanted me to do things the smart way. They're like, you need to go to art school and all this other nonsense. That's a whole other story about being in a blackout for almost half of a year. But the thing that really showed me the strange value is only when I started doing the fashion, because it hit me from such a direction. Like I had just no idea. So right before I started selling, like in about, in 2001, after I had moved to Los Angeles, I was just printing T-shirts for fun. Like my friend owned a print shop, and he would give me all the mess ups, and I would came up with a Cobra, and I started putting it on that and hoodies and selling it down at this place called Wasteland in Los Angeles. But then when I started sewing, and Lenny Kravitz bought like those first 3 or 4 vests, I was just like, this. It was going to pay my rent for I think 3 months. The stuff that he bought, and I was just like, the first time I was like, I'm doing the wrong thing with this band thing, you know. Not the wrong thing. I'm like, I'm going to make money doing this, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it anyway. I was already trying to work on my own clothes, you know.
Okay, you just laid down a pretty heavy name in the music industry with Lenny Kravitz. How does one going from doing what you were doing to all of a sudden you're selling stuff to Lenny Kravitz? Because that's part of the story, obviously.
Right. Yeah, I just had talked about this the other day. It all the credit goes to a girl I can't say her name because she just doesn't she's not down with that. But what had happened is I was playing in a band with this girl named Tia Sprocket was playing drums. Her friend was already a big time like clothing designer. You know, it was working for all these pop stars and everything. I said I wanted to learn. She started showing me how to do stuff. I didn't have a sewing machine, so I was at her house using her sewing machine. So because she was like just cool, like she was or is, um, my stuff was there. And so when the stylist came in and was like, "Hey, what's this stuff?" She called me up, you know, she negotiated the price. You know, I told her a price, and then she was like, "No, they're like, you know, they're 500 each." And she's just sold like these 3 or 4 vests for me. And so it was her. It was not me. And I believe that then later she was sick of dealing with these pop stars, and I think she just gave everyone my phone number. Is what happened. I think.
So how do you, again, those are whatever word we want to call them, a blessing, a gift, a whatever.
Yeah.
How do you absorb that? Is that the universe coming to you? Is that you putting something out? How do you look at why you got that awesome opportunity or blessing or gift, however we want to describe it?
Well, I mean, when you look back now, you just realize there was just someone really cool that you knew who saw something who was like, ask this guy. He'll do it. You know, so the first jobs I got were all pop stars, like, you know, Shakira and Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, all those girls like from that period.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I worked for all of them. And it's like at the time, you know, I can look back on it now and talk about it, but at the time I was just like, oh man, I got a job, and then oh, I got another job, and it was like nonstop. I don't know if I ever stopped. You know, I don't remember really taking, you know, maybe 2, 3 vacations somewhere in there in the 2000s, early 2000s, pre 2020, I guess.
Well, and I can relate to that with the work I've put into Racing for Recovery. When you have, again, I call it a gift. You know, when you have a
Yeah.
gift and you find your life's purpose, so to speak, you're not working and you'll do whatever it takes to make that gift known to as many people as you can. And I hear you in that. And I want to ask you, like, how did that feel when you were kind of like, okay, hey man, I'm doing some stuff. I'm living my life's purpose. This is fun, and I'm willing to do the work that it takes to be successful. What did that feel like?
I it felt like I was busy. I mean, I don't think there was like a lot of deep thinking going on. It just
Okay.
seemed like I was busy a lot, and I was probably stressed out. I mean, I'd still deal with all of that BS, you know, being half cuckoo, and all that. But I remember when we did the first Motley Crue job. Me and my business partner at the time, went to see them out at in LA. You know that place that's out there, the
San
outdoor.
Bernardino? Is it San
Yeah,
Bernardino? Yeah, yeah.
I think so. And that was when I had talked to Vince and was like, hey man, can't we put pentagrams on stuff now? Because they hadn't done it for a while. And I just remember seeing him on the jumbotron, and he was wearing like this red leather vest that I made him with the big pentagram, and it said "fuck off" really big on the back. And I was just like, wow. I mean, that was one of those moments where you're just like, it's really real. It really goes somewhere. Uh, yeah, that was bizarre because that was a band that I liked, right? It's hard to. I liked the ladies, the pop star ladies, and their stylists. They all seemed cool, but I didn't really have like a connection, at all to the music part.
Well, okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I could carry on
Yeah,
with Motley Crue right now, and as much as I want to, I'm going to stop, and we're going to come back to it. And here's why: you had mentioned
yeah.
when I asked you about were you cognizant of what was going on, you were like, no, I was just busy. But you also said when I did the word association, I said art. You said pain, and I'm interested in a little
Mm.
bit of why that word came to you.
Well, I think people operate differently, of course, which is awesome. And I always hate like that struggling, depressed artist kind of BS label, but it's a bit of a struggle for me. Like it seems like getting through some certain projects, it's like a real struggle to get what I want out and realize the way I want to do it. Some people it seems really effortless, and for me it's not. Sometimes it's just a big pain in the rear end. But I have this thing, luckily, from my dad or from whatever, where I can't stop. Like as many times as I wanted to quit making music or quit making clothes for people, and I've really really mapped it out. Where like I'm quitting, I'm done. I just can't. I can't stop doing that stuff.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I mean, it's like it's sometimes it's famine. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's feast. It just depends. Like sometimes on the touring cycles, like I don't work on as much movies as I did, in the previous years. It's a challenge.
Well, how about we do this, and then we'll get into the Motley Crue stuff. One of the
Okay.
questions I wanted to ask you this, and I had written this down. I want to know some obstacles that you've had along the way, and some powerful lessons that have been learned along the way.
Mm. Well, I have a little. I have a little. I guess medicine bag, figurative mental medicine bag where I keep a couple of these quotes in there. What have I learned? I mean, the obvious one is like I don't know anything.
Hmm.
You know, there's that. That's a way to try to keep your ego in check. But I remember one time I was having a conflict with Steven Tyler, and he looked at me and he's like, look, if you don't care, I don't care. And that's in there. That is in there, and I'll pull that out every once in a while when I get frustrated. Look, it's like you're frustrated. Take a walk and chill out. And remember, you know, I was in a position at one time where someone looked at my work and thought that I didn't care. So, reevaluate yourself, get back in there, and then like get to it, because that's the worst thing, right? It's like, well, if you don't give a shit, like, what are we doing here? Like, what's happening even? Why? And you
I'm
can get
letting
burnt
that.
out like that.
Yeah, sorry, Todd. We're a little bit of a technical thing here, or whatever. But
Yeah,
I'm still absorbing that quote from Steven Tyler. I'm
yeah,
still really taking that in. That is a powerful statement.
Yeah. Yeah. Because sometimes, like, and it goes back to some of the early AA stuff I remember. So from that, if you don't care, I don't care. Are you too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because when
Yeah.
those things are all going on, like, yeah, I don't care sometimes. I could give two flying F's about what's going on. That's happened in different times of my life. You're eating like crap, you're not sleeping, you're overworked. You know, Probably the biggest and most painful lesson was with, you know, someone very close to me just was like, I don't trust you.
Wow.
And it's like, and that in my medicine bag kind of goes into this other quote from, it was actually, I was watching a Jocko Willink thing. They were talking about war and relationships and something or other. And he just said, he's like, if you don't have trust, you don't have a relationship. Now think about that, like, oof, pretty often.
Very powerful. Are there, can
Yeah.
you, in the, boy, those are powerful things you're sharing right there. What, tying it into like business obstacles in a lot of these other emotional and psychological issues that come up. What are
hmm
some of the business obstacles that maybe you didn't know that you learned on the fly that have been very valuable along the way?
Well, I think that it's a business, because I think if you're making art, like I'm just making stuff, like you're just like, oh, I'm making stuff, and it's like, well, wait a minute, it this is a business too, especially when you're dealing with Motley Crue or any of these guys. Like that is a huge, huge business with tons of people, and you have to operate within that. It's not me like just throwing jackets in a box or something.
Yeah.
So, but and this has happened to me a couple times in my life. Like, so when I started tattooing, they were like, "Oh, dude, you're great. Come in, just start." And basically, in these two situations, I was thrown into the deep end. So I had to move forward really quickly, make a lot of painful mistakes, and then go all the way back and figure out, well, how are people doing this that are actually successful?
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, what else do I need to do? Oh, you should probably just send. You should learn how to make an invoice. You know, the basics, man, the basics. Like when I started sewing for who I think it was a Christina Aguilera job. I didn't know how to let out jeans to alter them. And luckily, because there was the girl that was my business partner at the time, she showed me how to make a gusset, or I would have like lost that job. Like I literally went from barely knowing anything to working for pop stars, and so uh, yeah, I'm not even sure what the question was now.
You answered it. No,
Oh,
you
okay.
answered it. We were talking about obstacles, but you answered it, and I just want to,
Obstacle,
yeah, because and
the
it's
biggest.
interesting. You and I have done some business together. You've made some things for me. You'll
Yeah.
maybe you'll kindly make more. We'll talk about that off the air. But that's one of the things I noticed about you very quickly. It is a business. You conduct yourself like that, and I've learned the hard way too that you can't, your passion is one thing, but there is a business to the passion. And doing some stuff with you, you'd give me an invoice right away. This is how much it is. This is what you're getting. This is what I'm going to, and it was like, yep. I remember getting that stuff and having these conversations with you where they were little subtle, professional, positive, good reminders of the stuff that I get to do too. So I want to thank you for that and saying I do
Ah,
recognize that. Yeah.
okay. Well, I feel like I owe you an apology because there was one vest that took forever to get to you, and it's because I was having the crappiest time trying to work in this garage here and get everything like resettled into my new space. So a really, really painful lesson that I continue to learn is the conversation in my head does not matter, because if you don't communicate with other people, they don't know what the F you're doing. They have no idea what's going on. And I've literally, I've been in business, I don't know, 24 or 5 years or something. I'm just getting to the point where I'm like trying to check in with people like, hey, this is happening. This is happening because, uh, it's weird to talk about this because it always sounds like an excuse, like you're a fucking pussy. But the more like I learn about myself and I try to like make these corrections and modify my behavior so it's not hurting other people, I realize that I grew up in that it's called fight or flight. So when you have an absolutely unpredictable violent alcoholic, you're just pretty much like waiting, because you're waiting for that person to come home, and then you're going to adjust everything around that. You have a safety window when I get home from school, and then you have like that time to build up to figure out what's going to happen. And so as that stuff drags like way down into your life, or you don't deal with it properly, it's totally like my responsibility to have like, dealt with that kind of stuff. I tend to let a lot of shit slide. Because unless it's someone yelling at me or something like major, like it just seems to like kind of like disappear. So I have to make an extra effort to kind of keep all this stuff organized.
Todd, look, man, it's weird we're talking like, well, no, it's great we're talking like this on a public podcast, but I don't call that being like a pansy at all. I call that being a compassionate human being who's showing courage by honestly conveying how you feel about this. That's the work that I'm in, is getting people to speak like this, because the more you understand yourself, the less likely we are going to use drugs and alcohol, and the more willing and able we are to be productive members of society. So good on you for sharing that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, because like I'm because of the person that I love that was like, I don't trust you. Like, to me, like, I'm like, why would I have any secrets? Like, what's going to happen? Like, who else, when a bunch of people that you don't love judge you, it's just like whatever. You have no idea like what this whole story is. But when the person that you think you're in love with or whatever is just saying that shit, it's like, I know that the truth sets me free, which is why I'll talk about pretty much anything at all, because I'd spent time being deceptive and a liar to somebody.
Wow. Good stuff, dude. How about we ease it up a little bit and we talk about some Motley Crue? Right? No.
How about we have a drink of water real fast?
Yeah, there you go. Off the air, we'll have another conversation, but I want to get into some Motley Crue stuff. I don't even know what to ask you, man. Let's do this. I saw the Looks That Kill video was my first introduction to them. So this would have been 84.
Yeah.
And just remember seeing that video and going, wow, this has taken Kiss to a whole other level. And I was hooked from the start. What was your introduction to that band, and what is it about those guys that, sucked you in the way they did me?
I think the same. Not the video, but rest in peace, Greg Winters, a friend of mine, brought the Shout at the Devil record to gym class, and when we were in high school, and he was just like, check it out. Like, I had never heard of the first record. I was off into my other whatever I was listening to, and then he was like, check it out, and it was like the same thing. I was like, these dudes seemed like serious, compared to Kiss. That was my other big crazy band that I liked, and I was like looking at Motley Crue, and I was like, these guys are tough, this is like a like a gang, but they're kind of like devils, but it's not jokey, kind of like Kiss was like kind of a joke compared to these guys in my mind. And then and then when I was playing drums, so I remember doing acid in high school, and I went home and I was listening to Shout at the Devil, trying to learn all the drum parts. It's like everything about it was awesome. I thought that album was freaking killer.
It is.
And so yeah, I was hooked, but then strangely enough, I was hooked for that record pretty much. And then I got off into a bunch of hardcore and punk rock stuff. The one interesting thing that did happen is me and one of my bandmates, this guy named JP, went and drove a truck from Galveston, Texas, after Motley Crue had filmed a video for, and I can't remember the name of the song. It's the one where there's the big mountain, and it's like I think it's Without You, maybe.
Yeah, you're right. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, so we drove like pieces of that mountain back from Galveston in this truck. I think we were getting loaded. I don't remember, but we like tore part of the U-Haul off trying to go through a Burger King or something, and but yeah, I'd seen Motley Crue in person in a parking lot in Houston, outside of this place called the Dream Merchant. It was a limousine, and it was Tommy and Nikki. And it was because of that video. Another friend of mine had known them, and she was like, you should drive by because they're over there shopping or whatever. So yeah, I have some cool, like really early stuff involving Motley Crue, and then millions of years later, then someone asked me to go meet with Nikki one day.
Well, I'm interested in this because I call them, again, I keep saying the same thing, these gifts or these blessings or the universe or whatever. And I'm fascinated with this because you're talking about, and same thing with me. I didn't know of Too Fast for Love. I saw the Looks That Kill video, as I said, so that was my introduction. Yeah. You're talking about the time frame of Dr. Feelgood, so you've been a fan or whatever, and here you get this opportunity where you see them. How did you utilize that? Did you go up and talk to them? Was it, here's my artwork? Was there anything on that level that was on your mind?
No, it was me and a friend. We just got out of a car, and they were talking to this other girl that I know who worked on the video, and I was just like, wow, man, holy shit, it's Motley Crue. And then we just went into the store. Like I didn't know what to say,
Yeah.
It'd be like meeting Rush. I'm like, what do you even say? Like,
yeah,
hey, that's, I don't know what you do, but now, like, of course, then later you talk to them and they're just regular, pretty freaking down to earth, considering how they could, how arrogant they could be if they wanted to. From some of the other people that I've met who are not like as well adjusted, I suppose.
Good phrase. That's why I asked you the word about arrogance. And I'm interested in this, and I'm sure some of our listeners will be too. What is it like then to have a business, maybe personal / whatever, relationship with those guys where you are just talking to them as regular human beings, which they are, and you're also, making art for them?
Well, I think it's really good because, like, when you talked about the professionalism, I have all those guys like info in my phone. And I never abuse it. Like, why would I ever? I have no reason to talk to those guys unless we're going to do work, or unless they contact me first. So it's like that kind of respect is really important. And then when they have something to say, then it's like we're in like creation mode, trying to figure out like what's going on. Like, obviously, I mean, because Nikki and Vince work in different ways. I think Vince will give me like a couple words, like descriptors on how to do stuff. Uh, Nikki lately he'll send like pictures and scribbles and other kinds of stuff. So working with them and talking with them is awesome, especially when it's in person. I mean, texting is cool, but like when you actually get to go over there and hang out like for a little bit, yeah, it's awesome because but once again, you're part of a massive, crazy machine, So I try to do my stuff and make it pleasant, and then get out of their way.
Oh, right on. One last question with the crew. Is there, I asked you about some of the things you've learned along the way. Is there any business or life lessons that those guys have specifically told you, or something you just picked up and learned on your own from being around them?
I would think it's like more of an unspoken thing, because I've hung out with them more than any other band that I've worked for. Is that you realize that while there's a huge machine going on, like these guys are really aware of and really used to, of course, like the rhythm of being on tour. So it's actually like it's kind of a lesson in being mellow. You know, it's it's kind of hard to describe. It's cool. Like everyone's really relaxed because you can't do that forever and be freaking out of your mind. Obviously those guys all had to mostly sober up.
Yeah, for sure.
So talking with Nicky is super cool because I know that he's like a mellow dude. So I like that.
He's sober. Yeah, totally
Yeah,
different.
yeah.
How about what are you currently working on, and what's the future hold for you with your art?
Right now I'm working on some stuff for Japanese clients, and I'm talking with back and forth with Motley Crue about the new tour. Um, I'm making some stuff for a crazy metal band that are in Germany. No, Greece. They're in Greece. As far as my art, I have been drawing more lately, so I'm gonna have an art show here in Houston in September sometime. And
Cool.
so,
Good.
yeah, yeah, because I know what I want to do with that is I want to force myself to get back to like big canvases and you quit noodling around, quit playing it safe, because when I think about big canvases, I'm like, I'm trying I'm trying to like kind of not think about it. So I'm like, it's like, you better do it. You better do the big stuff and quit playing it safe on these little pieces of paper.
What else? And you're Todd. Like I said, if you want to ask me anything, you can. But one thing I do want to put out to you, if you want, do you want to give out your socials or anything for people to get a hold of you if they're interested in buying any of your stuff? Feel free to do that as well.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean, it's junkerdesigns with an S.com on the internet for the store. And it's the same thing on Instagram as well. I
That's
mean,
how.
I think
Sorry, buddy. I don't want
no.
to. I don't mean that. Our we're drifting a little bit, but that's how I found you was on Instagram. God, and I don't even remember what the heck I was looking for, but I remember your stuff showing up, and it was almost like seeing Motley Crue for the first time. I remember looking at your page going, who is this dude? And what's in this? Because I like it, and that's why I reached out to
Right.
you. It was just the look of your Instagram page is I was like, who is this guy? And thankfully I did that because here we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really cool. So I think the main thing I'd be curious to hear from you about is the because like I have some books that I'm trying to work on. Like you've published a bunch of stuff and you sent me a bunch of stuff and I'm just like it's a lot of work. So as a writer, tell me how you're doing that. What's your schedule? Do you have like an off time and an on time, or can you just tell me about your process on that?
I appreciate this question. I'm up to 10 books now. I've started, and which is crazy for me even to say, but again, when you get sober, good things happen.
Yeah.
Uh, I just released 3 of a series of 5 kids books that I'm working on, which I never thought I would do. And that came from watching my daughter be a mother to both my grandson and my granddaughter. It
Uh,
brought up a lot of questions about my real mom, who took her own life from her drug addiction when I was a kid, and it made me look at my grandson as how I should have looked at myself as that little kid and what I must have been thinking and feeling. So it's been an interesting journey writing those books. But to answer your question directly, these things just come to me. The first book I wrote, I had a purpose. I'm like, I want to write this story of my addiction, and I got sober and started racing for recovery. But every other book from that has been from something that I learned at Racing for Recovery from watching a coworker or a client go through, that I thought I could put my own education and clinical spin on to make it a message of other people. And kind of like an artist, when I feel the need to start putting some stuff down, that some things that are in my head, I do it. And when I don't, because I don't think you can force art, if you will. And that's
mm,
one of the things that's been very helpful to me.
yeah. Yeah. Because I'm always trying to balance that line, because I know I can procrastinate. So I'm like, but the same thing, like I'll get ideas and I'll write, and then I won't write anything for like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then I write some more. So I've been watching videos online, like, trying to figure out what other writers are doing, and if it helps to like have a schedule. Like I think I would probably do good with this schedule, because I've been starting to talk to people more about my books, and they're like, well, how far along are you? And I'm like, it's probably like 75%, but I feel like the last, being a great starter and a slow finisher, I'm like, the 25% takes twice as long as the first 75%,
It's
almost,
true.
for me, it
Yeah.
seems.
I
And so
agree
I'm
with
just
you.
like, then how do I find so how did you publish? You're self-publish?
I'm self-published for 9 of them, and my first book was actually published. And if you're asking my opinion on the difference, I would say self-publish, and then like anything, word of mouth and marketing the heck out of it is what
Yeah.
that's the key. And you know this from everything else you do, but publishing, it's almost like kind of getting a record deal almost from some of the horror stories I've heard of that. You sign that
Right.
over and other people get control of it. And I didn't necessarily like that too much. So self-publishing has been the answer for me for the last 9 books, and I will keep doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out, yeah, that, because I think probably the first thing that would actually sell would be the Junker book. It's going to be called Norway the Hard Way. It's pretty much a lot of the stuff that happened in LA. There's so many whacked out stories from when I was there, like unbelievable stuff that's not even related to like the clients, but like this one crazy hotel I lived in for a long time, where all these really weird ancient rock stars would show up. It was weird, man. Super weird.
You have some stories to tell, and and Todd, I don't know. Like, I'll give you an example. I work very well with. I've co-authored all of my books or co-illustrated
Mm.
on these children's books, and one of the things I found, I may have some ideas, but when I'm working with somebody and they ask me a question, it brings more creativity out. Because, for example, just like your question that you asked me, I don't know if somebody would have said, hey, you should write a book about whatever, if I would have put some of these things in there, because it's not something that I would have thought of. But if somebody asks a question, then to me, it's like, well, you should put it in there because somebody was interested in it. And that piece of it has been very helpful, letting a co-author, a collaborative effort, that has been very helpful, is just being open to somebody else's asking a question, like I said, or maybe saying, hey, have you thought about this? That was very helpful for me.
And then, so how did you find a co-author? How did that happen?
Again, the internet is actually good for some things.
Right, right,
You know what I mean? I got
right.
You get connected with people through a variety of means. Iron Man connections, music connections,
Oh, I bet.
veganism connections, whatever, and you just find people. I'm actually looking for a physician to help me with a new book, because I don't have that medical background, and it's one thing to pull stuff off the internet versus talking and working with a real person who's got an MD background. So
Right.
that's how I've just proceeded with all this, is who has something that can help me be more credible, if you will, be more factual with education and things like that. And that's been very helpful as well.
Nice. Yeah, that gives me an idea, like to do some stuff on the internet, probably. Like just do some Instagram type polls to
Yeah,
ask people like, hey, what if you guys are going to spend money on a book, however much this book is going to be, like, what do you absolutely want to hear about?
exactly.
Because I mean,
Perfect.
I think it's more or less chunks that's pretty much bands. Like I got the Steven Tyler, the Dimmu Borgir, Motley Crue, and then I have a whole big chapter that's the Hollywood Crack Hotel, where it's just like a mix of all kinds of weird stuff.
Well, I can tell you this much: when it comes out, I'll be reading it right off the bat. That's for sure.
Nice, nice.
Dude, I really appreciate your time today, Todd. It's been nice talking to you, and like I said, we'll talk off the air about picking up something else if you have time to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, dude. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Thanks,
man.
bud.
Appreciate it.
You
Late.
bet, buddy.